Hello, welcome to the Steve Team's Mind Your Own Back program. The Steve Team Mind Your Own Back program, also known as MYOBack, involves mind, body, and prana. So we want to get a clear understanding in the simplest possible terms. So here we have pictures of the human spine. Here you have the human spine look from behind on the left and look from the side on the right. You see the S-curve that the human spine takes all the way up from the very foundation, the sacral lumbar joint, and we'll see what are the functions of the different sections of the spine. By the way, this is a healthy spine that we're looking at, and we want to know how the spine deteriorates and changes by the process of aging. And then, what can we do to try to keep it as healthy and useful as we can? So here we are looking at a number of drawings from the left to the right to illustrate the process of aging. The drawing at the very left is a picture of a gentleman standing up, upright, nice posture, chest out, chin up, and behind that you can see the position of the spine as it is in the body and its relationship with the posture. So let's go back to this picture again, where we look at the healthy spine. You see that there are big openings in the lumbar or lower back. Of course, those openings will have discs in between the vertebrae. And these openings of the lower back and also the rest of the spine are the ones that suffer in the phenomenon they call the drying out of the spine. So from a healthy posture like this, the spine will go to this, when the aging process will call the degeneration of the back. So here is the human spine, our balancing act. And you can see in the picture on the left that we have sections, as we mentioned before. We have the sacrum lumbar region, we have the pelvis and the first joints, which constitute the very foundation of the spine. So from the foundation up comes the lumbar section, then the thoracic section, then the cervical section, and every one of them with vertebrae of slightly different shape as they do different functions. Generally speaking, the vertebrae are quite big at the foundation, right at the bottom, and as they go up, they get smaller and smaller, as the weight that they need to carry will be less and less. So as you see, the very first joint as the sacrum is one that takes a huge turn to become vertical, because your spine really starts with the original intention to be horizontal. So this first joint is one that takes a huge turn to become vertical. So the first joint turns 50 degrees, which is a tremendous turn for one joint. Apart from that, that joint is sitting in an angle compared with the rest. Then we have the lumbar curve, which is the whole of the lumbar region. And in the lumbar curve, we have quite a bit of space between vertebrae. And from the initial 50 degrees angle joint, the whole of the lumbar spine serves the purpose of shock absorption. Shock absorption when you're running, you're jumping, or you're doing activity. So from the lumbar curve comes the thoracic curve, and the different sections of the S shape are there due to the weight distribution, which forces the spine to go one way or another to keep pace with gravity. The forces of gravity decide which way the spine will have to turn to keep it in balance. Then after the thoracic area, which hold the rib cage, heart, lungs, and all that, then further up we have the cervical or neck area supporting the head. And in that area, you see how the vertebrae become quite small, as they only have to carry the weight of the head. So in MYOBack, we aim at restoring the spine back to its healthy position. Now the spine is made out of segments called vertebrae, and these vertebrae are piled up on top of each other as in the drawing, and they are separated by discs. The discs have flexible rubbery joints, and they will allow the flexibility and buoyancy of the spine, and also will be preventing the vertebrae from colliding against each other. If you observe the vertebrae here, you'll see that they have a front section, which is where the discs go in between. And the front section is shaped very much like a drum. And by the way, this vertebra will have a lot of porosity inside, and in there you have like honeycomb sort of porosity, and with a lot of fluid inside. There will be blood and fluid, and of course we know that we make blood inside the bones. And all of this make the front section very much like an hydraulic drum. And of course, live bone is a little bit flexible, not totally rigid, The only rigid bone is dead bone, but if it is alive, there is some degree of flexibility. So we have hydraulic drums sitting on top of each other with separators called discs. Now, in this drawing, we can see an individual vertebra so that we can look at the components and what are the different sections. The front section, the rear section. We see that the rear section is made out of bits of bone that stick in different directions for the ligaments to attach to so that you can move and twist in all directions. And then we have the front section of the vertebra, which is the drum for the disc to sit in between. So you got a picture looking from the side and one looking from the top. And in between the front and the rear section of the vertebra, you have a hole for the spinal canal. So all this arrangement of vertebrae are there to provide a flexible and safe channel for the spinal cord to run through. Of course, at every level of the spine or every joint between vertebrae, there will be some nerves branching out of the spinal canal. So the spinal cord is a big loop of nerves coming down from the base of the brain all the way down, with nerves branching out to the right and to the left at different levels. And those nerves will go to supply different organs and parts of the body. And this is one of the main functions of the spine, providing that protected, flexible channel to the spinal cord, as well as providing a structural framework for the whole body to move and flex in all directions and for the muscles to work properly. In the drawing you also see a couple of facet joints. So in the picture at the right you can see two facet joints which are sections of bone at the back of the vertebra, where these facet joints of one vertebra will be resting on the facet joints of the next vertebra. So this is another way that the vertebrae keep in line with each other, as well as there is some level of support provided by these joints. Now in this drawing we are looking at an individual disc, and the top vertebra has not been drawn, so that we can easily look at the inside of the disc, so we can discuss about the inner components of the disc. And here you can see that the discs are made up layer upon layer of fibrous material, so that, like in the radial tires in your car, will give you the maximum structural value of the whole thing. The hardness or toughness of the fibers in your disc are very much like the tires in your car. If you take a slice of rubber of your tires, this disc in your back will have very much the same hardness. It's pretty tough and strong stuff. Now as you see, there are many layers, more than a dozen layers, and right at the center of the disc we have a different substance, which is a mucous substance. And this mucous substance will have the characteristic of absorbing fluid very eagerly and quite fast. And then will be stubborn to let it go. It wants to keep the fluid. And that will make the disc a real shock absorber. It will come up quite easily and it will resist compression. One point that is very important to understand about the disc is that the layers of fibers, the mucous substance, they have no blood vessels. In fact, no vessels at all. The question then arises, how do they get the nutrients and how do they get rid of the toxins? As you know, every part of the body will have to be constantly renewing itself. Nutrients in, toxins out, rebuilding itself. How do the discs do that? In this picture, we see a couple of vertebrae. On the left, the vertebrae are compressing a disc. And it's by the action of compression that eventually some fluid will come out of the disc. And with that, the toxins will be coming out of the disc. So the mucous substance, under a lot of pressure, will release fluid. Slowly, but eventually will release fluid. So this is how the discs get rid of the toxins. And how do they absorb fluid? In the picture on the right, you can see that the two vertebrae have been cut in half to show you that there is porosity inside. There are holes inside. There is a honeycomb type of arrangement and is full of blood and fluid. And then it's by the act of decompression. This is when you're resting at night, you're doing some special stretchings, yoga asanas, or you are doing the MYOBack practice where the decompression occurs, and then the discs, and particularly the mucous substance, will be trying to absorb fluid whatever it is available from. And then you see that the vertebra, which is made out of porous bone, is not totally sealed towards the disc. It will have some porosity that will allow fluid to filter through into the disc. So it's during the decompression cycle that the fluid will flow into the disc. The disc will be sucking fluid from the vertebra. Therefore, the vertebra will be sharing fluid with the disc. And this is how the disc absorbs nutrients. We know everything in the body needs to be renewed, so this is how the disc renews itself. So the renewal is done by alternative cycles of compression and decompression, fluids in, fluids out. So we can say now that the disc will literally breathe in nutrients and breathe out toxins, breathing in and breathing out fluids. And it is by these cycles of breathing in and breathing out fluids that you renew and keep your disc alive and healthy. You don't want to be compressing your disc all the time. And of course it's not good. They would end up collapsing. On the other hand, you don't want your disc to be breathing in fluid all the time. It's not possible anyway. So you need a constant alternation of fluid exchange, breathing in and breathing out fluids, and that is what keeps your disc healthy. Of course, if we are talking about disc, it is a good idea to keep the fluids up by drinking plenty of it all day long. Now here we are looking at the base, the foundation of the spine. The spine comes up from the pelvis all the way up. Here we have the pelvis with its sections, with the sacrum at the center and the two sides of the pelvis. And you can see the very first vertebra. The rest of the spine is not shown, but they continue to go all the way up from the pelvis. Now, if you look at the pelvis from the front, you can see different ligaments inside the front section of the pelvis. These are the ligaments that are holding all the different pieces together. There you can see the vertebra L5 and also the L4 shown in the drawing. And you can imagine how the L5 is sitting on the rubbery disc, which is a little bit flexible, of course. And then you have ligaments pulling in all different directions. You can imagine those ligaments as springs. So here we have the foundation, the very start of your spine, beginning with an arrangement where everything is held by springs pulling in different directions, keeping a very delicate balance. So this is where in the Steve Timms MYOBack program, or MYOBack, everything begins by restoring balance in this very foundation of your spine by the most powerful and effective exclusive technique that resets your pelvis, your very foundation of the spine, to its natural, healthy position. This is the most fundamental step because as you lose muscle tone, whatever you do in your activity, there is no guarantee that the ligaments at the right are going to lose muscle tone in the same way that the ligaments at the left, or the ones at the top will change in the same way than the ligaments at the bottom. So all these springs or ligaments can become uneven, throwing the whole foundation and pelvis out of balance, causing distortions at the very base of the spine. Now, if you have distortions at the very foundation, what then will happen to the rest of your spine all the way up, which is in itself a balancing act? So this is where in MYOBack we begin at the very foundation to make sure the foundation and pelvis are set up properly, to get you properly centered and properly balanced, including restoring the opening of the very first joint, the one that turns 50 degrees to become vertical. So whatever your body will allow to balance and open, you should achieve that point with your personal instructions of the MYOBack practice. Of course, this is MYOBack, the Mind Your Own Back program. Therefore, you are the one doing all this and achieving your maximum potential. Once you get the foundation right, you can then propagate the benefit in a domino effect all the way up the spine. So this is what you are going to be doing in your personalized practice of MYOBack. Then, coming up the spine, we have ligaments at the back of the spine. Remember the rear section of the vertebra? These are the ligaments that are attached to those little bits of bone sticking towards the back of the vertebra. And as you can see, the ligaments go in a plaited sort of fashion where the ligaments are jumping every second vertebra except when they come down to the very last vertebra at the bottom where the L4 attached to the sacrum and the L5 also attached to the sacrum, as there isn't any other vertebra to jump through. Now, wrapping up the whole pack of vertebra along the length of the spine, you have longitudinal ligaments, which are ribbon-like shaped ligaments attaching and involving every vertebra from the bottom to the top. So they are wrapping up the whole pack together. There is one running at the front and one at the back of the spine. If you observe carefully, you observe a ribbon-like ligament running at the front of the drawing. These ligaments keep the whole pack together in a similar way as the cables in a mast of a sailing boat. They are important components in keeping up your spine in proper shape, and also these ligaments will be the limiting factor when you bend forward or backward. So wrapping up now, we can say that in your individually designed MYOBack program, you will be aiming at restoring your back to its healthiest possible position. You will be opening up your lower joints. You will be opening up your back, getting the ideal flexibility you can achieve, and therefore restoring health, buoyancy, flexibility, and of course, happiness. As shown in the Mind Your Own Back book, there are a couple of pictures like this, where you can see the relationship of the different levels of the spine, the different joints, and their relationship with the different parts of the body. This is where the nerves are feeding the different organs and different parts of the body. With this chart, you can check if you have a problem, say in the middle finger of your hand, could be the right or the left hand. You can see which nerve corresponds to what level of the spine. So the middle finger, as you see in the picture, corresponds to C7, and C7 is cervical 7, which is the base of the neck. So if you had pins and needles or numbness in your middle finger and your hand, that is where it comes from. Even after doing MYOBack and done all the proper lining up of the spine, you could still have problems with the individual joints. So to work on individual joints, you can use the help of a roller. We recommend to use the MYOBack roller as it is designed to be a gentle roller. We don't believe in forcing or punishing your body. And we get better results if you're friendly with the body and you work in coordination with mind, body, and prana. So this roller will allow you to massage one joint at a time or a couple of joints at a time. And the roller will be a two-functions tool. It will be a diagnostic tool, and you will be able to diagnose your back. And also will be a tool helping you correcting problems. So you simply put the roller on the floor and you begin rolling your body up and down on top of the roller as in the picture. Knees up, elbows out, and you help with the elbows and your legs. You are able to adjust the pressure on the roller and you work from the bottom up. And by the way, we recommend to do this after the setting of the pelvis, after you have done your personal MYOBack program, as the foundation of your spine will be properly aligned, and now you come to work on individual joints. So now you work on individual joints from the bottom to the top. You start at the very base of the spine and you begin to roll up and down, a small section of the spine at a time. And you can feel what is going on. You adjust the pressure, and it is a nice massage you give to yourself in your back. And this will help you to dissolve issues that you can have on individual joints. So having an understanding of the whole process that you're going through will be really good for your mind to be at ease, to be relaxed during your practice. And then your mind can focus on paying attention to the sections of the spine and body and what you do in the different steps of the practice. And therefore get mind and body coordination. And with mind, body, and prana, we trust that you can achieve the best possible results. Nearly 200 Irish men and women who had lost hopes for a cure of their back problems by any other means achieved remarkable results in the European summer of the year 2010. Each one of these individuals received their own tailor-made personal version of the Steve Tim Man Your Own Back program, according to their own personal needs. Since many of these people had difficulty to fully reproduce the original program, then it became clear that every individual required their own tailor-made individual program on their own personal DVD cut to their needs. And with that, they could reproduce their program anytime they like for the rest of their life. So MYOBack is now offering personalized, tailor-made program on DVDs for every back situation. To select your right program, there will be some questionnaires and some possible consultation needed in order to determine your specific needs. Then the DVDs are created to cover all the subtle points for your very specific needs. So this way, by having your own personal DVD, you will be able to exactly reproduce your program anytime you like. So the DVDs will cover for your needs the exclusive Steve Tim's setting of the pelvis in every detail. Then, based on the proper setting of the pelvis, achieving that fundamental part of the program, you will be able to do some specific well-known asanas in a very complete way where there will be coordination of mind, body and prana. Going through the steps of the program, you will learn the best way to relax yourself, removing tensions from your spine, and to do the program asanas in the most effective way. By having your own personal DVD, you will have all the specific points precisely and concisely according to your own personal needs, covering every subtle point you need to know. The idea is to give you all the tools you need to achieve your very personal program in the best possible way for the rest of your life. Mind Your Own Back means being able to achieve total self-sufficiency. Please visit mindyourownback.com.